I feel smarter, wiser, more awakened. But I'm also scared. I feel so overwhelmed with the amount of dysfunction in the world. He talks about how religion can actually be looked at as a form of illusion and distortion. Most people are not even conscious of their own essence. So how are they going to be able to see the essence in others? A spiritual leader would be a perfect president. Hello there and welcome to this video. My name is Tyler. I want to say hello to anyone who is seeing me for the very first time and also to any of you who have been subscribed. Hello again. I hope that you're having a great day. I decided to turn on my camera and just have a talk because I've been wanting to talk about this book that I started reading a few weeks ago, and I didn't quite know where to start with it because it is a spiritual self-help book and there's a lot in it, a lot to discuss. And I'm trying to do this new thing where I just sit down and I speak my mind without thinking too hard about what I want to say. I don't want to plan it out too much. I just want to go. And hopefully that's okay with you guys, and I hope you enjoy the way that this video is going to turn out. I don't know what's going to happen, but let's just talk about it. I want to talk about this lovely piece of wisdom called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. If you are more spiritual, you might know about this book already. Oprah has talked about it. He's a really good friend of Oprah. He's a spiritual leader known across the world, and this book is very well known. I love it. I had been wanting it for a long time. My boyfriend ended up buying it for me, and I haven't been able to stop reading it since. It is all about gaining consciousness and being more awakened. It's about enlightenment. It goes into the ego and what the ego is. And it's really a book for anybody who already feels like they're on a journey to becoming more awakened. He mentions in the beginning of the book that you will not understand this book unless you have somehow already discovered that there is a journey to be on. Really, I don't even know. Hopefully that makes sense. I am only on chapter 2 and feel like I'm so much smarter. It's not smarter in terms of knowing how to do math or knowing more about history. Smarter in terms of the world. There's just so much going on in this world. Lately, I just feel like, okay, let me take a second because I really want this video to be natural and I want to just talk and be able to be open with you guys. So let me take a deep breath and just relax into it. I want to start by saying that everything that's been going on in the world for me has been really disappointing and exhausting to think about. Some of you guys might be able to relate to me when I say that, but when you feel like you are a compassionate person and that you're an understanding person, when you come into contact with people who are not that way, it's really hard to understand. And not only am I coming into contact with people who are not that way, but I'm also watching it all happen and I'm hearing about it happening all the time. People committing crimes, politicians not caring about certain groups of people. And it's really disappointing because, like Eckhart talks about in this book, when you are a conscious being and you are awakened to some degree, you realize that everybody is one and the same. And it's just disappointing to know that not everybody thinks that way. And I understand that it comes from your background a lot of the time, but that just says that the same things have been taught for so long to the point where they continue on and people don't know how to get out of those ideologies. They think that certain people are the enemy and they teach that to their children. And in the case of people with humongous platforms, such as the President of the United States, when he says certain things, it's frustrating to me, even though those things may not be about me or about anyone who looks like me. I can't help but think, why are you not considering the fact that you're talking about real people who have to go out into the world and deal with the effects of what you're saying? One of the terms that Eckhart talks about in the book is this word enemy. And I think that that word is thrown out a lot. We're in the middle of an election and tensions are high, which scares me, for one, because I believe that tensions are high because of the things that have been said, and it's really divided all of us. And I don't understand why. Because for me, I just think that no matter what anybody else says, no matter what light they try to paint a certain group of people in, I am always going to remember that we are all one and the same. But a lot of people are not strong enough to think that way on their own, and they just follow whatever is being said, and they believe that whatever is being said is the truth. And I think that is what Eckhart is talking about in this book, about being unconscious. And I spoke a little bit about it today on my Instagram. I don't know if you guys follow me at reading.in.black on Instagram, but I posted a little something about this book, and it's about dysfunction and unconsciousness and what unconsciousness means. I kind of want to read it because it was pretty good, I must say. The current state of humanity scares me, which it truly does. It seems that there is an insane number of people who have become lost in their own greed and desire for power, resulting in the suffering of other people and the planet. That is unconsciousness. To be so wrapped up in conditioned mind structures, ideologies, and religions that you forget that we're all one and the same is to be unconscious. Unconsciousness is a distortion in your perception of other people and yourself. I think there's an outrageous number of unconscious people with too much power. People who are attempting to change external reality without any prior change in their inner reality, their state of consciousness. I think that what's going on in the world right now, especially during this election, is that we have people in power who are not conscious enough to be in power. And by that, I mean that the people in power don't value all people. And it's clear. They make it very clear. They don't hide it from anybody. And this might be off topic, but what are the qualifications for leading the country? What are the prerequisites? What is necessary? Because when I was reading Eckhart's book, I thought to myself, a spiritual leader would be a perfect president. Somebody who values all life, human life and other life forms. How about that? That just sounds perfect. I don't know what is required of people to run for president, but it just seems like whatever those requirements are not enough. That's all I'm saying. I'm going off topic, but let's get right back into the book. Let's get back into it. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, dysfunction. The normal state of human mind of most human beings contains a strong element of what we might call dysfunction or even madness. So let's talk a little bit about dysfunction. So Eckhart is saying that every human being has some sort of dysfunction present in their mind. You can't get away from it. It's a certain level of madness that we all have. It just differs by degree for each person. Some people are a little bit more dysfunctional than other people. Some people are a little bit better at containing it or dealing with it or shutting it out. He says that the most dysfunction occurs in areas where you have a collective amount of people who are unconscious. And this can be referred to as collective consciousness, or a collective dysfunction, or a collective mental illness that's present in a group of people who are unconscious. What scares me is that Eckhart says that dysfunction is actually increasing and accelerating. It's intensifying. We all know that science and technology helps us. Yes, it can be looked at as a positive thing, but in some cases it's not necessarily a positive thing, especially when it's used for dysfunction by unconscious people, i.e., machine guns, submarines, flamethrowers, and poisonous gas. He says that, yes, the human mind is amazingly intelligent, brilliant, and it's allowed us to progress in areas such as music, literature, architecture, painting, sculpture, science, and technology even. But the problem is that this is sometimes intelligence in the service of madness. So the human mind's intelligence, a lot of the time, is used to create more dysfunction in the world by people who are abusing that. They're abusing the intelligence of the human mind, science, and technology. Destructive and cruel wars motivated by fear, greed, and the desire for power had been common occurrences throughout human history, as had slavery, torture, and widespread violence inflicted for religious and ideological reasons. And he goes into religion, and this part blew my mind. He talks about how religion can actually be looked at as a form of illusion and distortion in the human mind. And before you get all defensive, just think about it. Think about how involved people get into religion to the point where they forget that everybody is one and the same. When you think about that, yes, it sounds a lot like it's some sort of delusion. Like it's almost like a spell that you're under and you just can't get out of. You can't think otherwise. You look at other people like they're the enemy. People who are following different religions other than yours, you, for whatever reason, think that they are living wrong and you're living right, and you can't help but think that way. And these religions, a lot of the time, they make you feel like you can't question anything. Does that or does that not sound like delusion? It sounds like delusion, right? Let's not lie. It sounds a lot like delusion. And that's what Eckhart is saying. I will read you a little bit of what it says just so that it'll make sense. And so religions, to a large extent, became divisive rather than unifying forces. Let's stop there. Just think about it. Religions, they're super divisive. They make people believe that they are better than others based on what they believe. I'm wrong and you're right. But in fact, a lot of religions such as Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism, they all kind of have the same teachings. Why is it that some people think that they're better than the other when heaven and hell exists in most religions? There is some form of sin, for example, that's Christianity, that is present in all religions. And it talks about that. So for Hinduism, they call it Maya, which is some sort of veil of delusion. For Buddhism, they call it dukkha, which is suffering, unsatisfactoriness, or just plain misery. And then for Christianity, they call it a sin, which is to live unskillfully, blindly, and thus to suffer and cause suffering. So if all of these religions are referring to the same exact thing, why are they now so divisive? They're all about the same thing. It says, instead of bringing about an ending of violence and hatred through a realization of the fundamental oneness of all life, they brought more violence and hatred. They became ideologies, belief systems people could identify with, and so use them to enhance their false sense of self. Through them, they could make themselves right and others wrong, and thus define their identity through their enemies. And yet, in spite of all the insane deeds perpetuated in the name of religion, the truth to which they point still shines at their core. They're all talking about the same thing. It still shines, however, dimly through layers upon layers of distortion and misinterpretation. What I found really interesting is that he said, just because you're religious does not make you spiritual. And to be spiritual is to be conscious. And to be conscious is to know that the truth is we're all one in the same. And we all have an essence within us. We're not just these physical life forms that you see on the outside. People go to church and they go to church and they think that by going to church and praying at church and praying at home or wherever it is that they pray makes them spiritual and that it makes them a good person. Not true. To be a good person means you have to be good and you have to find the good within you and act from that every single day. But just because you're religious and you call yourself a Christian or you call yourself a Buddhist doesn't mean that you are conscious, and it doesn't mean that you move throughout the world as a spiritually awakened person, awakened to the fact that everybody is one. There are a ton of religious people who claim to be Christian, for example, but they condemn other people. And if I'm not mistaken, okay, I don't want to get too much into Christianity because I don't know it like that. Listen, I don't want to get too much into it, but it says, many religious people are stuck at that level. They equate truth with thought, and as they completely identified with thought, they claim to be in sole possession of the truth in an unconscious attempt to protect their identity. And that is one thing about religion that I never understood. I understand that people want something to believe in. I completely get that because it's kind of necessary to move throughout the world so that you can make sense of what's going on because nobody really knows what's going on. But some people get so wrapped up in it that they don't experience life. That's just my personal opinion. If you're so wrapped up in an ideology or a religion to the point where you feel like you can't have basic conversation with people, that's a problem in my eyes. That just means that you're extremely close-minded, and that is what he is talking about when he talks about delusion. A lot of things that Eckhart said in this book really made me think, and it made me a little bit scared because I'm like, we're going through it. We are going through it right now. He has a section called The Urgency of Transformation, and I'm just going to read it to you and tell me that this does not sound exactly like what's happening in the world right now. It says, when faced with a radical crisis, when the old way of being in the world, of interacting with each other, and with the realm of nature doesn't work anymore, when survival is threatened by seemingly unsurmountable problems, an individual life form, or a species, will either die or become extinct, or rise above the limitations of its condition through an evolutionary leap. When I read this, I was scared. I'm not even gonna lie to you, I was scared because it just seems like we've gotten to a point where we either change or, I don't want to say it, but something bad is gonna happen. That's all I'm gonna say. And it's so scary to think about. That's why reading this book is so interesting. I love it. I feel smarter, wiser, more awakened, but I'm also scared. I am also terrified because Eckhart puts things in a way that almost makes too much sense. You're like, hold up. This is like, you're saying a little too much. You're saying a little too much, but then you love it at the same time. So you're like, tell me more. You know, it's just a lot. Okay. I want to read some more parts that I highlighted that I thought were really good. He says, the dysfunction of the egoic human mind, recognized already more than 2,500 years ago by the ancient wisdom teachers and now magnified through science and technology, is for the first time threatening the survival of the planet. Yes. I feel like the world has been dysfunctional since the beginning of time. There have always been dysfunctional people causing chaos and mayhem in the world, but for the very first time, it just feels so chaotic and so heavy. I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel so overwhelmed with the amount of dysfunction in the world, and that is why the human species is disappointing me in a crazy way right now. I just feel like it's out of hand, and it's been out of hand, but right now it's just so loud. It's so loud and you can't ignore it. It's in your face and you don't know what to do about it. A lot of the times I feel hopeless and helpless and just confused about why people can't get along. I just want everybody to get along, and I don't understand why they won't. But Eckhart explaining it to me as people being extremely unconscious makes complete sense. He says that when you're unconscious, you do not see the essence in all life forms. You don't see past the physical form. So when you look at me, you see a black woman. And that's fine. That's what I am on the outside. But essentially, I have a soul within me, just like you. So if you're conscious and you're awakened enough to know that, you are not going to want to harm me or any other life form, because all life forms have souls and there's an essence in every life form. He says that most people are able to sense the essence in newborn species, newborn babies, newborn animals, puppies and things that you look at and you're just in awe because they're so pure, so young, and so new. But you should see that in every body, every single person, every life form, even trees and different animals, lizards, squirrels, other human beings, no matter what color they are, you should be able to sense that essence. And if you can't, if you are so caught up in their physical life form, you're not completely conscious. And that's just the truth. And that's where a lot of dysfunction comes from, is that most people are not even conscious of their own essence. So how are they going to be able to see the essence in others?